everyone, and welcome to this episode of Marriage for Overcomers. I'm Mark DeJesus, and I'm here with my amazing wife and co-host Melissa.
Thank you so much, and welcome to today's episode.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
You excited to talk about this episode?
Yeah.
I am too, because this is really good. This is going to be another good layer to add on to each episode. We pray that so far you've been tracking with us and going through each stage, and we're going to dig layer by layer by layer and help you to deal with the key factors that are so important in getting your marriage from where it is to where God wants to bring it. And not only is it going to change your marriage, it's also going to change you in a dramatic way. So that's what this is all about. So today we want to get honest about your marriage. And this is an important aspect because most marriages don't have an honest relationship. And so therefore, they are living at the lid of the level of healthy honesty that could be there. And they're coming up against that lid. So we need to get real about the life of how honest we are about the marriage, how the marriage started, the critical factors. So here's the question. Can we get honest, truly honest about our marriages in a really productive manner? Can we honestly assess our marriages without deep guilt, without deep shame, without the blaming? Can we get honest about our marriages without the failure mentality getting in, or I'm terrible, or you're terrible? Is it possible for you to get honest about your marriage in knowing how you got started and recognizing that how you started off doesn't have to be how you finish? God is all about the end in keeping that in mind and where He's leading us to. So in this episode, we want to go through some of the hindrances, some of the things that keep us from being honest. And I feel like if you want to change the life of your marriage to become better and improve it, you have to first get honest. Because otherwise, if you're not honest, you can't get on the same page. You can't deal with the things that need to get dealt with. But we have to learn how to do it in a healthy way. Now, God does this with us. He says, I am light. In me is no darkness. So He's like, I'm love. God is love, but God is light. So that means He can handle anything. He'll deal with anything, but we've got to bring it into the light. Now, before we get into honesty, we have this generational problem where families hide things under the rug.
Secrets.
Yes. And we have spent a lot of time, in our pastoral work dealing with couples and families where there were secrets that were hidden. And anytime somebody tries to bring it up, it's like, shove it back down, shove it back down.
And secrets don't necessarily have to be things that are hidden. It could be stuff that's in plain sight. Alcoholism, abuse, tons of things that are we're not just saying things that are, no one really knows about. It's stuff that's like openly happening in the family that
no one's talking about.
Wait, are we living in the twilight zone? Are we crazy? No one wants to talk about this.
I actually find that this subject is a major component to mental illness that people struggle with.
Absolutely.
Because you grow up with conflicting factors of what you see and what is portrayed, and they don't line up. So it's like the home is filled with abusive environments, but then no one talks about it, and everybody talks about how great everything is. And then you're growing up going, why am I like so messed up in my head? And then you bring that into marriage, and you're just repeating what you experience. So a big component of getting honest is going to help you break some of those negative generational patterns that you bring to the table. I think that up front, why is honesty so important? We've already kind of touched on that, but I think that it helps us see clearly what's going on. It pushes past some of the confusion, and it helps us to recognize if we're going to really deal with these issues, you and I have to get honest with each other. We've worked very hard at that. And I think that was challenging at first, but now it works in our favor because we're constantly keeping things in the light. Let's talk about it, even if it's frustrating. So I think people watching this would say, okay, yep, I want it, but I've got hindrances. So what do you think are some of the hindrances we need to address when it comes to being honest?
For me, one of the big ones that I think that we hear a lot from couples that we counsel and we spend time with and just being a woman, in conversations that I've had with other males, family members, things like that, one of the biggest things to me is silence. And silence being that when I bring up a subject, I get nothing back. And it's excruciating. And I think we have trauma in our system, in our heart, over this happening time and time again when you try to bring something to the table and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or we need to work on this, or what do you, and there's not even a dumb response. There's silence.
Right.
Silence. And that is excruciating.
Yeah, so if they experience silence, there's a fear of ever experiencing that again.
So getting really honest is so scary.
Right. I've brought this up before, and he said nothing. I brought this up before, she said nothing, and then just moved on like nothing was even said.
Right.
And that's torturous.
It's
to the heart.
It's horrifying.
Okay, so what do you do about that? What do you do about that if a wife says, I talk about it, I get nothing, so I'm afraid to even go there again?
Yep.
What do you say to that?
Well, I think this is where the tough action needs to take place. I think it goes back to the episode we did on the roommate syndrome. You brought a very, sobering charge to the home on what we're tolerating. And what do you want? What are you going to, are you going to tolerate that? Is that just what you're going to sit and receive? Or are you going to fight for that and raise the bar? And then within those responses are, unfortunately, sometimes there are decisions that need to be made.
Right.
And it's a very tough thing because you can't force anyone to want honesty. Right. You can't force the other spouse to want it.
Right.
You can't. And that's a major factor here that's excruciating, even in helping couples and dealing with things. You can't make the other person want it, even though one person wants it so bad.
That's true. It's true. It goes back to we've counseled a lot of females that you need to sit down and go, this is a really important conversation I'm about to have.
Yeah.
And I need you to listen.
Yeah.
I'm dying here, or this is really going bad, or this is, there is destruction going on and we're not dealing with it. And we're not leaving the table until we come to some action steps.
Yeah.
And you're not going to ignore me.
Yeah. But I think here's the problem. We could do the whole episode about this one topic, I feel, because I think what women are afraid of is, all right, listen, I need an answer. We can't live like this. And there's still silence. And I think people are afraid because the next step is decision.
Right.
Which you brought out in that episode.
And then it's like the decision's back on me. And we can't avoid that because everybody has to make their decision.
What kind of health are you fighting for?
Right. I think that.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's been some situations in marriages where the guy's very passive, and when the wife brings up things, sorry, I'm about to sneeze.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
No, I left.
I got this sneeze like right on the edge of my nose, where the guy is passive, emotionally passive. Yeah. And at times where we've had to say, you know what, when topics are brought up and you guys are talking around the table, you are not allowed to not say anything.
Right.
Because we'd have conversations and he'd kind of just drift off into doing something else and avoiding conversation.
Right.
And there needs to be a higher, it goes back to some things we talked about last episode, there needs to be a higher standard brought to the table and a higher expectation and a discussing of the standard that says, do you agree that this is what you want? I need an answer, yes or no. Is this what you want?
Right.
And then you get, no, I don't think I can do that. And then now you go, okay, what am I going to do?
What are our decisions?
Do I need to reevaluate my strategy? Do I need to make some decisions about my marriage? Or what do I need to work into? I think that for men, the challenge is the fear of being seen as a failure. That if I really go into how passive I am or mistakes I've made, that is a failure, and failure means I'm a failure. And if I'm a failure, I'm worthless as a man.
Right.
That's the trail that we go down. So therefore, men get defensive.
Yeah.
So the classic scenario, and people watching this and listening, you've seen this in your own life. The wife brings a situation to her husband. Mm-hmm. She says, this is what I'm concerned about coming out of something that you did. She's bringing a hurt and pain to him. He responds with defensiveness, then turns it, and now all of a sudden it's all about his pain.
Right.
When the conversation started off with her pain. And she's like, honey, when you said that thing, it was really hurtful. And then it turns into, I've been working long hours and I've been doing all these things and I'm trying to do my best with the family and all you do is nag. And it's like, I can't bring stuff to you. It says to her, I can't bring stuff to you because it's hitting at the I'm a failure. And if a man can sober himself to go, failure does not mean I'm a failure. Failure is actually a sign of if you're taking action and you mess up, it's good. It's better to take action, mess up, than not do anything at all and just sit in that avoiding, because it conditions your emotional muscles to keep going back to that. Go back to just watching TV. Go back to just checking out. Go back to work. Go to all those things that keep that muscle really lazy.
Right. I think, too, the thing, and I bring this up constantly, and if you're listening, you're going, yep, but I don't know what to say. I don't want to say nothing, but I don't know what to say. This brings up a real big topic of how you were equipped and not equipped, and what is your heart and emotional intelligence coming to the table in these conversations, which I would say is a huge fear for men.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to say or take responsibility. I don't know what to do because you weren't given the language and the tools. Not only was it not modeled for you, but my goodness, men, they're not being given much in this area at all of just the language to use when you're in relationships.
Right.
Besides, hey, baby, I love you,
Right. So it's important.
You know how to access that.
So it's important to then go, I need to access help. I need to get the learning that I need. If you find yourself as a man saying, I don't know what to say, you need to start getting emotional equipping to start understanding what to say. Because your answer isn't always, here's, oh, honey, you're feeling that way. Here's what you should do. Sometimes you just need to listen. Mm-hmm. But when she brings the concern of these are the concerns I have about the health of our marriage, that you tune in to go, I recognize that. And I want to be a part of it.
Right.
Let's talk about what needs to happen for this to change.
Yeah.
And don't get stuck in self-pity, because too many couples get stuck in self-pity. He's this or she's that, and then you just pity about yourself and your life, and it keeps you disempowered.
Yeah.
So I think you bring up the fear of getting silence, the fear of being seen as a failure, the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
That arrows are going to fly back at you. It's going to be toxic. There's shame involved. There's a lot of defensiveness. A lot of times we don't want to see ourselves honestly because we feel that from God, this condemnation, rather than going, you know what? I've messed up in these areas. I mean, the Bible's littered with people that were very, they were not flawless. They carried a lot of mistakes. In fact, bigger mistakes than we all did.
Huge.
One of the heroes of the Old Testament was a adulterer, a murderer, and a list of other things. And we sing his songs all the time.
Right.
We, look at all throughout the scriptures.
Right.
Lying, cheating, stealing, murdering, killing, sleeping around. There's mistakes. It's what is our attitude, and I think honesty is going to work best if my attitude is, I'm not going to be defensive. Let's go into this territory together. Let's take a step. What have we got to lose? The marriage is already struggling. What do we got to lose at this point by getting real, by getting honest, rather than just staying in a cocoon? So we have 5 questions that we think would be very, very helpful in getting more honest about your marriage. We found this to be helpful in our lives and in people we work with. The first question is asking yourself, why did we get married? Right? It's a great question.
Place to start.
Because a lot of people, when you dig into their history, they got married for the wrong reasons. They got married because maybe they just were so sexually charged.
We thought, this will make a great husband and wife team because we're so passionate.
And that's part of it, but that's not a main reason.
No.
Some couples got married because...
family guilt. Our families were friends. Or we were dating and just didn't know how to break it off.
They put the pressure on.
Right.
Maybe you had a arranged marriage, or maybe you got married out of pregnancy. You know,
trying to do the right thing, but we didn't really love each other, but we wanted to do the right thing.
Right, right. Did your parents force you? Was it, get honest about why did we get married?
Yeah.
And recognize some of the factors that are there. Again, this does not mean that, well, we got married and we didn't really love each other. That's not a honest assessment to then go, yeah, so forget it.
Right.
No, it's going, okay, if that was the case, then no wonder we're struggling 20, 30 years later where we are now. It's just, we're big on, we got to put perspective on this.
Yeah.
To stop beating each other up and clubbing each other over the head,
right.
Whether we do in action or in our
right,
minds. Right. Just get honest. There's factors that would attribute to this. What's the second one?
A second one would be, how did your marriage start?
Was it a train wreck at first?
Right.
Were you guys, as soon as you got married, throwing things at each other? Was it all over the place? Did it start off strong, but it went to a place where now, like Jesus said, you've left your first love, where there isn't that beginning covenant desire that's now waning?
Yeah, or there are other factors that happen. People lose parents right off somebody dies, or an illness comes into play.
Yep.
Where there's traumatic things that early on, as a young married couple, you're not prepared for. You're trying to build your own life, and then outside life stuff comes at you and can do a number on you.
It's interesting. I have a number of marriages I've talked to in this past year, weddings where like a loved one like died at the wedding.
Right. I know several.
Very
interestingly.
At the reception, on the dance floor, father-daughter dance.
We know somebody close to us. It was at the rehearsal dinner.
Yeah. So it's all these like unexpected things that now we're celebrating marriage, but grieving at the same time.
Right.
How does that process?
Right.
So those factors are important to keep in mind. There are marriages that say, when people say, take your marriage, go back to your first love, they go, that's not a memory for me. That's not a reference.
I wasn't super in love. We just were like, this is the next step.
And the truth is, and this is what a lot of people need to understand, we don't start off in our marriage knowing exactly the depth and power of love. We think we do, but it's
Lust
really...
is not love. It's not.
Infatuation gets us there.
Hot and heavy business.
It gets us there. But the covenant needs to come into place, and then we really learn how to grow in what love means.
Yeah.
And that's an honest assessment. We didn't know, we didn't have a clue what love is.
No, as a matter of fact, we told people, we would never recommend getting married the way that we did, the way we started. We had so many outside, like we were very much in love and wanted all that to happen, but there was so many outside factors affecting us.
Well, there was a lot of
changes. In the process of leaving the church we were at. We were moving into new things of understanding and healing, and there was this snowball. I had stuff going on in my family. There was all these things that were affecting it that didn't help. Yeah,
we got married. 30 days later, I left my staff pastoral position, and we ventured out into a whole new...
Didn't have jobs.
Yeah, our income, we were like month to month figuring out how God was going to work it out.
Lost all of our friends pretty much.
Yeah, we had to kind of start new relationships.
Because of the church culture and that, unhealthy atmosphere of, people just staying away from us because we left the church. We lost friends. We're starting a new marriage. Money was nil to none. And hey, we're newlyweds.
Right. That really helped us, though, in the assessment of how much we expected from each other, in the sense of like, we need to show grace to each other because we're going through a lot of changes. This is very, very challenging. And we carry that to this day, even when I was doing speaking, traveling work in the area, and then we went into pastoring. We had a church for a season. There's a lot of different like changes, and then assessing the brokenness of, like you said, church life, where we're trying to like transition healthy, and then we're working through our own junk.
Yeah. If I could, what you just said, I want to bring that out again for people. Something that we've had many times where people think you and I probably have the most perfect things we say to each other and how we love each other. And, we've had a lot of hard work. But one of the real simple things is, like you just said, that we've had to say to each other a lot. You're going through a lot. Mm-hmm. You got to cut yourself. We have both said that to each other more times than I can count. That literally communicates to me a lot of things in that statement. You're okay. You're safe with me. I get it.
Yep.
It's okay. I see what's going on. It's all right. And yes, validating, you're going through a lot. This is a lot. Yes, it's going to affect you, and it's okay.
Right. Stay the course, but take the pressure off.
Yeah.
Like this, recognize what we're going through. It gives grace for each other. Now, it doesn't, dismiss us from responsibility and action, but many things, there's marriages where you lost a child.
Yeah.
Did you grieve through that?
Together. Even too, because a lot of people go into their separate corners.
Yeah, I mean, and when you lose a child like that, like young, you never really get over it.
Right.
It gets a little easier, but you never truly truly vanishes. Right. There's always like a deep scar that's there. And there a loss of a job, loss of career, a family breakdown. Are you taking into factors those considerations that are contributing to, okay, how did our marriage start, or what really tried to come in to just really take us out? Yeah. I think the third question's very, very important.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most important.
Yeah.
And is, what are the broken factors that you brought into the marriage? What broken factors did you bring into the marriage? I know it's easy to look at the other person and say, this is what they carried, this is what they're doing, this is what they do that irritates me, or what they're not doing that irritates me. But what broken factors did you bring in? What things, what dynamics do you bring that contribute to the problems? Because it always takes two. Don't just look at the other person. Look at your own junk, because if you don't assess this question in a healthy way, you'll automatically go to the assumption of, I married the wrong person when times get tough. Get me out of this. This person's the wrong person for me. And I hate to say it, but even though there may be some factors to that can be true, in you married out of dysfunction and you weren't in the right place, you're going to carry your junk into the next relationship. And you really need to understand that. So if you miss the signals now to grow in yourself, a better marriage is not out there for you that's going to be the safe landing. It's probably enemy territory number one, is you'd be better alone or better out somewhere else. Now, again, you may have to make decisions about your marriage that are tough, but I think you have to realize that when you come to the table, you have generational patterns that you bring that are not of God. You bring brokenness that is areas God needs to heal. And on top of it, you bring mindsets of your family. They're not right or wrong. They're just the way you did things. We've had a lot of talks about this.
Totally.
Where it's like, I'm like, babe, you understand, that's the way your family did things. This is the way my family did things.
Right.
Doesn't mean mine's right and yours wrong. Doesn't mean yours right, I'm wrong. We got to learn each other and learn how each other processes, cleanliness or cooking, the garbage or whatever, these kind of things.
Yeah, one of the big factors, I think, is how do you give and receive love? Because that comes from your inherited patterns, what your how your family processed. Totally. Which I think would be a great opportunity right now, to bring out the book that you wrote, because we all don't know how to do this in a healthy way. In giving love, receiving love, processing love, loving others. So I think...
Yeah, this resource, God Loves Me and I Love Myself, is an ideal resource to equip you as an individual to say, how can I work on myself? Because we want to allow God to work on your lens of what love looks like. To get honest, but it's hard to get honest without love being present. We need love to be present so that we can engage the tough subjects with kindness, with patience, with gentleness, not beating yourself up, beating the other person up, but soberly looking at the issues of your life. So I also have an online course on this that you can get as well. But yeah, it's available on audio and paperback and
because we need equipping. I think that is the main thing that I want to, every time I get a chance to talk about healing of the heart, restoration of whether it be marriage, relationships, we need equipping, we need language, and we need understanding, because a lot of us are just walking through this blindly. If we've said it before at certain times, we hear the statement over and over, I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to do.
That's right.
And it's okay to admit, if we can at least humble ourselves when it comes to all these topics, start somewhere. If you can start with that. I don't know what to do. Where do I start?
But don't
Where do
stop
I
there.
start?
I don't know what to do. How can I learn?
Right. Where
Don't
can I go?
stop with these limiting statements that make you stuck. Stop saying things that just keep you in a
Yeah.
corner. Begin to say, okay, this is what I feel. This is honest. Now, how do I learn? How do I discover? I don't know how to love my wife. How can I learn? You know, everything you're searching comes out of that.
Absolutely.
Pride's going to be a big one. Everybody brings their pride, their defense mechanisms, and God has this tractor that he just slams up against our pride to teach us how to humble ourselves over and over and over again, because that's the posture that he wants us to take. Two more.
Yep.
Fourth question is, okay, what is the current condition of our marriage? This is a really honest question you can ask together. And you'll get interesting responses, because typically in a marriage that's struggling, one person says, I've got a list of things that I'm really concerned about. And the other person goes, oh, I'm fine.
Right.
You remember the old Seinfeld episode where George Costanza, this kind of dates us from the millennials, because Seinfeld is now an old show.
We love Seinfeld.
George Costanza is working with his boss, and he's saying, Mr. Kruger.
Mr. Kruger,
Yeah,
right.
I got this work that I got to do. And he's
Right.
like, and the guy's sitting there and he goes, I'm not worried about it. And and George is like working away. He's like, what's
Right.
going on? And he's getting all mad. And everything he says to him, he goes, I'm not worried about it. Well, that is a dynamic in a lot of marriages.
Right.
Of, do you see your son? What's going on here? You see your daughter this? That we don't pray together. We just that. We're not on the same page.
Yeah.
And your response to you is, I thought things were fine. That's where, we go back to what we said earlier, like, whoa.
Right.
We really need to talk.
Right.
And we can't ignore this. We can't walk out of the room. I need you to sit and I need you to listen, and we need to have discussions over this.
Yeah.
And it's not just the wife to the husband to the wife too,
Yeah,
because she can be very passive, numbed out, checked out.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, we need to talk about this stuff and get to a better place.
Right. That's good.
What's the last one?
The last one is, what will it take for us to move forward together towards a better marriage? What will it take?
Yeah, because you get honest, and then it's like, what's it going to take? Honest assessment. How are we going to get help? What's it going to be? What are we going to read? What are we going to, utilize? What's the expectation out of this honesty so that it's fruitful?
Yeah.
And as we're honest, we're not going to beat each other over the head. We're not just going to throw, darts at each other.
Yeah.
We're going to both assess ourselves, come to the table with that, and we're going to have real honesty stirring up of stuff that
Yeah.
we're going to go somewhere.
A recommendation I would have is get the God Loves Me book and say, okay, let's go through it. We both don't know what to do. Let's go through it chapter by chapter. Let's take a couple days and then let's come together. It doesn't have to be our book. There's other great books out there. There's the Love Dare. There's a bunch of things that you can do to stir things up and start creating dialogue. Because if that's your struggle, which that's most marriage struggle,
That's right.
is the dialogue.
Yeah, the Love Dare book.
It's on the other side of the
Yeah, I don't have it
from
right
the
here
movie.
next to me. We'll put a link to it in the show
we'll
notes.
put-
But
But
the Love
sometimes
Dare,
we need help in these things.
the Love Dare book, I want to just mention this real quick, is really helpful in breaking down areas of stubbornness and pride.
Yeah, very true.
It will teach you a humbling process day by day. I found that.
Yeah, looking outside yourself,
We'll
yeah.
talk about that resource more, but we'll also link to it in the show notes as
Yeah,
well
absolutely.
too. So 3 words come to mind when we were talking about this subject, and there are 3 R's that you can evaluate when it comes to your marriage. The first one is renovate. A renovation. All our marriages often need renovation, and in order to do that, we need foundational work. We're always encouraging people, go to the foundation, go to the root system of how you see yourself, God, and others, your beliefs, your core values, the truth that you believe and live off of. Renovation is the process of improving a broken, damaged, or outdated structure.
It's good.
Maybe
Right.
your marriage is just outdated, Like you're living in 20 years ago.
Right. It's good.
Kind of thinking, and God's going, I need to bring you guys to a new level. Remember that show we used to like, Holmes on Homes?
Oh, he was great. Is he
And
still on?
I don't know, but he's a Canadian guy who would go in and somebody would do it. Somebody would do a renovation job, and it was messed up, and he'd come in and he'd have to often undo what was done.
That's right. It was a lot of those jobs that somebody else had. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so we have to give God permission to do that. Another R word that I think is important is the term restoration. When, there's plenty of TV shows out there that do this, they will take like a car and they'll do a restoration work. When they do a restoring work, they're not making it look like a car of today. They're bringing it back to its original state and condition. And I think that God in many ways does restorative work of bringing us back to his original designed state and condition without the infiltration of what sin has done in our lives.
Right.
That's the whole story of redeeming, buying back, taking us back, bringing us into the state that Christ really paid for. Another term that comes to mind is the term revive, that your marriage may need reviving, which is, if you look up the term revive, it means to return to consciousness or life, to wake it up, to make it active and flourishing again. I think those 3 R's are very critical: renovating, restoring, reviving.
Absolutely.
Which one sticks out the most to you in your journey?
Yeah.
And I close with this scripture from Isaiah 58, verse 12, because those of you that take the call to say we're going to take our marriage to the next level, you will have a generational effect of laying down a foundation for future generations to build on. This isn't just about you having a nice, happy life. This is about the next level of what you're imparting to future generations and filling in the gaps of where people did not experience the love that they needed or the equipping that they needed, but you, out of your journey, can be an equipper. He says, those from among you, in Isaiah 58:12, those from among you shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundation of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. So that's the call for us. That's the destiny that your change would be able to pour out into the lives of others. So get honest, but do it in a productive way. Yeah, let's take the charge for a higher standard of what we're accepting in our marriages. Absolutely. Fantastic. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you.